This is Just in Case of American Newscape. Please join Monique Hayward, friend and mentor, and myself for a journey into Get Your Hustle On. Monique has joined us today suggesting a fruitful career path for us, and she's outlined in her book, Get Your Hustle On. Hello, Monique.
Hello there, Justin. How are you today?
We're doing fine. How are things up there?
Well, things are going well in Beaverton, Oregon, as you might imagine, given the situation with the virus outbreak. Everybody's sheltered in place, trying to maintain social distance, and I'm doing my part by, having been in the house mostly for the last 6 weeks.
Well, very nice. Let's get right to it. In your book, Get Your Hustle On, you offer expert advice, knowledge, and wisdom for young adults navigating the current job market. What originally inspired you to write this book?
Wow. Well, what originally inspired me to write the book were a couple things. One was that as an entrepreneur and as a marketing director in corporate America, I was always and still continue to be pretty sought after by younger people who are just starting out in their careers. I pride myself on being a role model, and I try to give back in that way to show people, how my path has taken shape and to try to provide some inspiration for them. And so what wound up happening was that I would be doing these talks and doing these presentations over and over again with the same topics and the same subjects, talking about a lot of the same things that people were interested in about me and my career path, and how I actually managed to piece a successful career together. And certain themes kept emerging, certain questions kept coming up, and at one point I just said, you know what, I really should just write it all down, put it in a book, and publish it so that people can have that as their reference, in addition to hearing me, talk about it with them in person.
So you were able to efficiently save time by not having to talk to people.
Well, that didn't actually cut down on my presentation time nor my meeting time. In fact, when the book finally did come out a few years ago, I wound up getting more phone calls and wound up getting more invitations because people really did resonate with the topics. I tried to put together a framework that is easy to follow, that is intuitive for people to understand, and for them to really get into. It's not one of those things where it takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy and a lot of additional work on your part to really focus in on the things that are important in building your career, because you really should be doing this stuff anyway. It's a lot of times what happens with things like soft skills, I'll say. People tend to put that stuff on the back burner. They have so many other priorities in their lives, just doing their day jobs, trying to figure out how to, get to and from work and take care of business and, make and meet all of the commitments that they've got going. And, a lot of just taking care of ourselves and taking care of our own careers tends to be on the back burner. And so this is a framework that I put together that you really don't have to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy putting together, because it's really quite easy.
Wow. You have enjoyed a long, successful career in high technology, but you didn't always know exactly where you were going. What kinds of pitfalls and challenges did you experience on your path to success?
Well, I think that there are a couple things. I often tell a story about, today I'm 50 years old, and I wish that I could go back and talk to my 20-something-year-old self
Wow.
because I have a lot of wisdom that I could share with her. And so I think that a couple of my pitfalls and a couple of my challenges really tended to be in the space of wanting too much too soon, and thinking that I uh, knew everything that I should have known at the particular time that I was in a job or working on a program, or working on a project, that I didn't listen enough. I didn't take the time to really build the right relationships and understand the system, and really create the right opportunity for me to be successful in the way that I try to do now, as a mid-career professional, as opposed to those early days. I think also the other thing too in terms of challenges is really just understanding where I had the best opportunities to continue to build my skills and to continue to learn and grow as a marketing professional, and to really create a path that made sense as I was stepping through my career. And so in terms of how the pitfalls really did kind of emerge were really around having the confidence and having the wherewithal to really just pursue the big opportunity and not be afraid to misstep or to make a bad choice, because in all of that you really do learn and you really do grow. I think I was always trying to do things that were safe and do things that I knew I could be good at or that I knew I would be successful at, and I didn't stretch myself enough. And so when I learned to take a little more risk and learn to stretch myself a little bit more, then I became a more well-rounded and seasoned professional.
Wow. Many academic scholars, business professionals, and analysts have identified the trends in employment rates among college graduates. What makes Get Your Hustle On different from other books on the market for young entrepreneurs?
Well, like I said, it's a simple framework that doesn't take a lot of extra effort and extra energy to really get yourself organized around. And so I have a concept that I call the 5 C's. And it starts with competence. That is your base. That is everything that you know, your skills, your education, all of that fantastic foundation upon which you're building, any career, right? And so then on top of that foundation, what you're doing is also, kind of laying, laying some planks in that platform on top of that foundation that really pull it all together. And so the next C is your cachet. That's your personal brand. So who you are and why should anybody care? Then the next C is communication. That's your storytelling. You really do have to have a solid viewpoint about your skills, about your experience, about your capabilities, that you're able to communicate clearly and succinctly to people and in a compelling way. Then the next C is connections. That's your network. And those are the people who help you with getting your job done. And then finally, your coaches. So those are your mentors, your sponsors, your role models, the people who are really invested in you and your career, and making sure that you stay on the path to success. Those are the people who give you the feedback and will tell you when your stuff is janky and you need to bring it up.
And the courage to do so.
Right, and the courage to do so, because a lot of times what happens, right, I mean, people want to be nice and they try to, not necessarily keep things on the real. You have to have people in your network who will keep it on the real for you, who will give you the straight talk, who will give you those insights and that feedback that's really going to help you. If you go into a meeting, for example, and you do a presentation, and you don't necessarily communicate it well, or you didn't do the work with a particular stakeholder ahead of time and wound up getting yourself into a rabbit hole that you kept going down and didn't know how to pull back out. If you don't get that kind of feedback, from someone who's been in that meeting and who can coach you and guide you on how to actually make that better, then you're just going to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Well, that's very, very true. Now, the wisdom of this book doesn't...
And I know I've made these mistakes over and over.
Yeah, I'm the master.
This is why I coach people. They listen. You must listen to this feedback. It will be so amazing for you. Believe me.
So the wisdom of this book doesn't just apply to young adults.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I have more success in a lot of ways with coaching people who are, a little bit later in their careers. And it's interesting because, again, I mean, a lot of times what happens is that we put this kind of stuff on the back burner, and people will be, 5, 10 years into a career, and they suddenly realize that they haven't gotten to the level that they want to get to, or they haven't progressed in a way that sets them up for a promotion or a really good opportunity. And a lot of times also what happens is that if people especially want a career switch, they're not spending the time that they need in order to get themselves set up to make that transition at some point. So a lot of times when I'm coaching mid-career professionals especially, is that you can't keep your head down for 5-10 years and then look up and say, oh, I've been doing this for the past 5-10 years, now I want to do something completely different, and haven't done the work to set yourself up for that new path.
Wow. You have assembled an impressive lineup of contributors who are very well known in their respective industries. How did you select your contributors and approach them to participate in this project? Because the book is a project.
Yeah, the book is a project. And, I had a very similar approach with my first book, which was called Divas Doing Business, What the Guidebooks Don't Tell You About Being a Woman Entrepreneur. And in fact, you and I actually did a similar interview back in the day when I launched that book. And so essentially what I did was I did a lot of the research, of course, on the 5 C's that I wanted to put in the framework that I described a little bit earlier. And I knew that I wanted to have my own point of view, of course. I mean, every author wants to communicate his or her own point of view. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I had credibility in my point of view, that I had data, that I had examples, that I had real life people who were actually living and breathing what I was trying to communicate about the importance of building your personal brand, or being a good storyteller, or having a strong network, and making sure that you have role models and coaches. And so what I wound up doing, the same thing that I did with my first book, was that I just reached out to my network, and then reached out to people who were also not necessarily part of my network at the time, but who I wanted to build a relationship with by way of using this book project as my way to open that door. And you've worked on these things, being in the media yourself, right? That most people welcome the opportunity for a little publicity. Right? And so if you go to most people and say, hey, I'm working on this fantastic book project and I would love to feature you in your story, 100 times, 100 times out of 100, people are going to tell you yes.
As they should.
As they should, exactly.
Well, and then there's a beauty in the logic that, we all grew up learning that those who can do and those who can't teach. And the beauty of mentorship is it's coming from somebody that's actually accomplished.
Yeah, I think that what's really interesting about mentorship specifically, Justin, is that you don't necessarily have to have the relationship be, kind of in this strict hierarchy. Like, you don't always have to be mentored by someone who is, so much farther along in his or her career than you, or someone who has accomplished, something way outside of what you think you could ever accomplish yourself, right? I mean, mentoring happens at all kinds of levels, and it happens on, all different matters of subject, all different matters of engagement. So some of my best mentors in my career have been my peers, right? So people, people who are at the same level as me, work in the same organization, um, who have insights and knowledge and expertise that I can leverage and learn from their experience, and who have as much invested in our relationship in the two-way, exchange than most other people would, who might not necessarily be at your level, and who, may not necessarily be thinking, that they want to kind of reach back down. So a lot of times I start my mentoring relationships with my peers and then work my way up to people who are, at a higher level, or, have, some other accomplishment that is noteworthy, or something that I aspire to, and then reach out to them from there.
It's been stated in the beginning that young people have lost their hustle. You go on to
Yeah.
quote, defining hustling as rising every single morning, honoring your calling, and perfecting your craft.
Yeah.
How have you made that apply?
Well, in my life, I've known that I've been good at a few different things, and I try to stay true to that. And first and foremost is that um, I have uh, I have built a career out of simplifying complexity and communicating well and communicating on a large scale. So, like you said earlier, I work in high technology, and I have had, the great fortune of working for big global technology brands that have reach all around the world and are, you know, top of mind for nearly 100% of the population when you know who the brands are. And so I have used that as an opportunity to build a skill set, to build uh, a core competence, to build a core X around what I like to describe as megaphone marketing. So if you have something that you want to communicate or something that you want to promote or something that you're trying to get somebody to be aware of, change your perception of, or build a brand, then I'm your girl. I know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's my passion. I started out in my life, honestly, wanting to be a journalist, and then I realized when I got to college that journalists don't make a lot of money, and I mean, girl likes her shoes, right? So I was like, this is not going to work. I mean, it wasn't like when I was in college, several years ago. Won't say right now, but it's not like I was prescient about where the newspaper industry was going or where media would be developing or anything like that. I mean, I was just like, I just didn't want to chase ambulances or write obituaries for a small town newspaper. I really just wanted to figure out a way I was going to make some more money.
Yeah. In your in your book, you encourage young adults to carefully assess what you call their key differentiators,
Yes.
and they're developing their personal brand. This
Mm-hmm.
would be considered part of the 5 C's of hustling. Could you describe the 5 C's and explain how they work one more time?
Sure, yeah, definitely, because it's worth repeating. Let me tell you. So, and let me take it from the standpoint of the key differentiators first. So, when I talked about your core skill set and your areas of competence, so the skills that you're building, the education that you paid all that money to get, all of your experience, all of the talent and opportunity that you have, been pursuing really does serve as that foundation. And let's say that you are a marketing person. Let's just use my example. There are millions of marketing people out there, and one thing that I try to do is, as I described, like what makes me different than most marketing people. That's what your key differentiator is. So, like I said, I'm a megaphone marketer, right? And so I use that as my differentiation. So when you think about your core skill set, you think about your competence, you think about your areas of expertise. What is it that's unique about you and how you deliver on that? And how is it that you describe it to people? So when you think about your personal brand, the cachet piece, right? That really is, who you are, what do you stand for, why should anybody care? And it's, all of those things about how you present yourself to the world, it is all part and parcel of how you manage your brand. And then how you communicate about your experience and your skill set and your areas of expertise is the storytelling. And we as human beings love to tell stories. I mean, that's what we do. We tell each other stories, all the time. And you can do this in business. The only difference is that when you're telling stories in your personal life, there really is no aim, there really is no purpose generally, right? So like, hey, Kurt, or my friend Kurt, or my friend, Craig, who I just got off the phone with actually just a little while ago. I was like, hey, what have you been up to since the last time we saw each other? And we're just telling stories back and forth, back and forth. But there was no purpose in that really, other than to just catch up and create connections, right? So, fast forward that to my friend Craig, who is working with me, or my coworker Craig, rather, I should say, who is working with me on a project at work. The stories that I'm telling him need to have some purpose. because we're trying to move the ball down the field. We're trying to accomplish something, right? We're not just talking for the sake of talking, right? We actually need to get some stuff done. And so that's the difference in your communication and your storytelling, in this context versus, your personal context. And then the connections, as you think about your network, you should think about your network on a number of different levels, right? So first of all, I think, things like social networking and, online opportunities, networking events when you can do them, all of those are well and good, but they don't really serve the purpose of actually helping you get things done. Well, I like to think about my network on, a more immediate kind of level. What is it that I'm really trying to accomplish right now in my career, and who are the people in my network who help me get that done? Because first of all, you don't have a lot of time, and you can't waste a lot of time networking with people for no purpose, right? What is the explicit purpose that you're trying to build your network in the first place? And a lot of it usually wrapped around what is it that you're trying to accomplish with the role that you have, and whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working in a company or whatever, there's something that, you're doing and collaborating with people to get done. And so you want to make sure that you've got these folks in your network who serve that purpose. Because just collecting people or, adding to, your contacts or, exploding out the number of people who are connected to you one way or another is not super helpful in most days, right? You really are talking about the 10 to 15, 20 people who really are interacting with you, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to help you move things forward. And then with your coaches and your mentors and your sponsors, I think that in this case as well, less is more, because again, you're time constrained, you're busy, you've got things to do, you're working, you're trying to run your life, you're trying to have a good time, you're trying to get some sleep every now and then as well. And so where you have to be strategic about how you create the people who are going to be in your inner circle, kind of like your own personal board of directors is how a lot of people think of your mentors and your coaches and your sponsors, right? And you need to engage with them on a regular basis so that you can get that feedback that we were talking about earlier, so that you can continue to learn and grow as you progress in your career.
Well, in today's American culture, there's a lot of hype surrounding the need to find a passion. This can be tricky when one enters the job market. In Get Your Hustle On, you delve into hazards of desperately trying to match one's passion to a career. How did you come to terms with this idea?
Yeah, this is very interesting because, again, a lot of younger people, especially today's generation, as we look at, millennials as they are moving, through the workforce, and, the next generation, Generation Z coming behind them, they have almost been conditioned, right, to kind of lead with their passions, to really focus in on the things that they love to do and want to do. And that's fantastic. I'm the first one who is in your corner being a cheerleader for the things that you want to do to make yourself happy. But a lot of times, especially from the hiring manager's point of view, I care more about your ability, your skill set, your experience, your expertise. And if you happen to have passion about that, that's fantastic. That's nirvana. If you actually are passionate about something that you are good at, boy, there you go. That's that's the holy grail. But a lot of times, what happens, in a lot of the conversations that I have, particularly with folks who are early in their career, the couple things that are happening. One is that, I'm of that generation where, we pay dues, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, if I could go back and talk to my 20-something-year-old self now that I'm 50, some of the conversation I would have with myself would be patient, do the work, pay the dues, because that's how you're going to learn and progress a little bit, faster. So I think a lot of times what happens is that, folks want everything all at once, and want it really fast, and want it really to happen like right now. It's like, well, you don't sort of walk. It's the rare person who walks out of a university and is a senior leader in an organization. I mean, that just doesn't happen that way. And you have to have the right expectations. So, yes, have passion, have energy, have enthusiasm about a lot of things. But when it comes to the work that you do, couple that passion with what it is that you're good at, and then you'll be in a better place.
Wow. It's interesting that you bring up various and multidimensional arguments surrounding career preparation and the
Yeah.
dwindling professionalism of youth. There's a lot of discussion on these issues. What are your thoughts how college prepares young people for real life experience?
That's a really good question, and I've given this some thought. Again, as I've been coaching and advising people who are early in career, and one of the things that I've found is that um, the university setting often is not really preparing people for what they're going to experience when they get out into the real world, especially working in large organizations, whether they be for-profit, nonprofit, government, non-governmental agencies, does not matter. I think what I've observed, especially in the last 10 years, is that they're coming out with a lot of course, book smarts and a lot of knowledge about about their subjects and about um, their areas of expertise that they have spent a lot of that hard-earned cash going to college to get the degrees in, but where they've had to actually learn how to operate in large organization has been around some of the softer skill set stuff that we're talking about, right? Like how to differentiate yourself when you are competing against people with similar skills, similar background, similar areas of expertise in an organization when you're trying to get to that next role or that next opportunity. They're not coming out with strong communication skills, right? How to actually get to a point where you can put together a presentation and deliver it in a way that connects with an audience and gets the message across in a way that is clear, compelling, and consistent. That's something that I've observed that people need a lot of help with, and even people need a lot of help with that along the way in their career, not just early on. There are a lot of people who are struggling when it comes to being able to communicate clearly and succinctly. This is why I've been so successful, I think, in my career, because that's one thing that I've been able to do and be successful at. And then I think the other thing that I've observed is that, like I said before, the patience, right? Having patience with big organizations and not wanting to make things happen so fast that you miss the opportunity to learn the stakeholders, to learn the system, to learn how things work, to really dig in and understand organizational dynamics, organizational politics, the things that happen in the scenes, the way that I like to describe it in an organization, right? I mean, a lot of the networking that you do and a lot of the conversations that you have don't happen in your meetings. They don't happen in your formal gatherings. They don't happen in formal structures. They happen in the scenes. They happen in between. And you have to be organizationally astute. You have to be paying attention. You have to have those relationships in order for people to really help you along the way so that you can be successful in navigating. And I think that's been really challenging for people coming out of universities these days, is that they don't have some of that that organizational kind of acumen to really understand how best to navigate in these kinds of systems and in these kinds of organizations.
Wow. You've already accomplished so much in your life and with all of your
I,
hustle.
I'm crazy. This is my problem,
Yeah.
right?
Aren't we all?
Who does this? I mean, yeah, you do the same thing, Justin, right? Who does this? Who's like, working 40, 50 hours a week at a high-tech marketing job and being an entrepreneur and being an author and being a speaker and doing all this stuff. I mean, like, why am I doing all this?
We're crazy.
Because we're crazy, exactly.
I understand there's still so much you'd
Yeah,
like to do, which is
yeah. So there's a
exciting,
lot.
and that's
Yeah,
exciting for us. What are a
yes.
few things you struggle with completing along the way?
Mm.
What are your proudest moments, and what do you have left to do?
Yes. Well, I tell you, my proudest moments are where I have created something from nothing. And you can totally relate to this that, I'm an entrepreneur in addition to having a corporate career. And my entrepreneurial ventures have given me an outlet to create and, enable other people's um, passions and talents and skills, that are completely different than anything that I would experience in my corporate job. And so that for me has been enlightening at the same time frustrating, right? Because as a small business owner, we all know that if you're not thinking about your business, what are you thinking about, right? And
Right.
so it really does test you. It really does, give you pause, especially when you go through experiences like the financial crisis that kind of took my first venture, which was a restaurant business, to task, because that was a really challenging time. And now I have a personal chef business, and I have a partner in the Phoenix area, and we have a company called Driscoll Cuisine and Cocktail Concepts. And here we are in the middle of a virus outbreak, right? Who
Right.
knew? We just started the business late last year, just got it up and running, and it was hockey sticking. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it! It's like it might just be paying for itself pretty soon here, and then boom! Oh no, I can't believe this is happening. So I've learned a lot by way of owning my own businesses and having that experience. It's quite humbling, and it has a way of leveling you. Definitely, you're like, okay, you know what? I'm not all that in a bag of chips with salsa, guacamole, and bean dip.
Well, maybe on
when I
Monday.
when I got to make a payroll.
Maybe on Monday, but Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe on Monday.
What is the key message that you want to deliver to young entrepreneurs as they take into this challenging job market?
Yeah, especially now. Uh, this is an especially trying time, and my message to uh, people who are entering into the job market now and into the near future: hang in there. It's going to get better. It always does. Those of us who have lived long enough have been through these cycles, and we know that they are up and down. So uh, make sure that you get your hustle on. That's really my message. Make sure that you have a fantastic skill set that you've been building, that you are able to, deliver on your commitments, and that you can demonstrate that you know how to get things done and you know how to work hard, and you can be a valuable member of an organization. You are really confident in who you are and your personal brand and how you position that for people. You tell really good stories about that experience and connecting that to what other people need and helping other folks with getting things done, and that you make sure that you've got people who are helping you along the way and looking out for you. That's my message.
Wow. Other than therapy, what are your future plans for your personal life and your career?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I try not to think too much about the long term future. But for right now, I'm really focused on making sure that we come out of this, particularly challenging period with this virus outbreak, successful with our personal chef venture. That has been top of mind for me for the last couple of months. And I think that we will be well positioned, in fact, because um, you know, a personal chef business is uniquely positioned to take advantage of the slow ramp that people are going to have coming out of this. And you're not going to see people rushing to have big gatherings and huge events and going to restaurants and bars in large numbers, right? but people have been cooped up for the last couple of months, right? And they're eager to get back to some semblance of normalcy. And so I think that they'll start with smaller gatherings of people who they know and love and trust, and will want to do those parties at home still. So I think we're well positioned for that. So that's what I've been thinking about for the
Well,
future.
I agree. What would you like to leave us with today, Monique?
Well, I would like to leave you with, first of all, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to this conversation. I hope you found it interesting, compelling, and relevant to where you are in your career. And hopefully, you've got a few bits and pieces of advice and counsel that you can use as you're thinking about where you are in your career, regardless of what stage you are in your career, whether you're in the beginning stages or the middle stages, or on your way to the next thing. As you think about what that looks like for you. And then, of course, I do have this book, and it's a fantastic book. So I hope that you will check it out.
Okay, this has been Justin Case and Monique Hayward, sharing a glimpse into Get Your Hustle On. Thanks for joining us. Please remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's Read More. Please consider subscribing to this channel and to get out there and get your hustle on. Thank you, everybody.